Scalability and elasticity are characteristics of cloud computing. Scalability handles the changing needs of an organization. So as an example, imagine that we've got a custom application, whether it's public-facing or maybe it's even an internal corporate line of business app. It doesn't make a difference, but performance is suffering. We've got more and more usage of this app. The performance is no longer acceptable. So what we could do is increase the performance of that application by scaling. For example, by increasing loads on a system and handling that by increasing the underlying resources supporting it, like EC2 instances or adding more horsepower to the instances. Elasticity generally refers to increasing or decreasing cloud resources, but technically scaling can also be decreased. So handling an increased workload means working with the constraints of the existing infrastructure. So if we've maxed out the underlying hardware or software resources that support an application, so we can no longer scale vertically, what we could do is scale horizontally by adding multiple nodes or EC2 instances to support an increased workload. We have to think about pre-planned capacity that is available to support these changes in the workload. Now, sometimes you'll be able to predict when there's going to be an increase. For example, for the use of an application such as a retailer with Christmas shopping, so during the holiday season, there's probably going to be more demand on that type of an app than during off-peak season. So scaling up is also called vertical scaling, where scaling out is called horizontal scaling. Remember, scaling up or vertical scaling really means increasing or decreasing the horsepower, such as the number of virtual CPUs and RAM in an instance. Scaling out horizontally means adding, for example, cluster nodes to increase performance for the processing. With cloud elasticity, we have the ability to adapt to workload changes, and that can be done manually or dynamically. So what we could do is take a look at an overloaded, busy environment, whether that applies to the underlying instance types, and we could make sure that we change to an instance type that is better suited to handle a workload. So for example, if we know we've got a very disk-intensive database application, we want to make sure that our database instances have the best possible disk throughput. And we might use, for example, SSD types of storage instead of HDD. We also have to think about, in some cases, cloud elasticity might not be required. We might have environments that do not experience sudden changes. We have a determined and predictable type of workload that just doesn't change very often, in which case elasticity isn't as important, nor might scalability be. However, we would still have the ability to run this in the cloud and still gain the benefits of only paying for what is being used.